And we are live. Hello, everybody. And we lost Mineko right off the bat.
Nice. That's hilarious. Hi,
Oh,
everyone. Welcome to the Sisters Review. Tonight we have Her Royal Highness Mineko from Atenveldt on. She's a pelican, a badass fighter, an artist, a super fun person, and we are waiting for her feed to come back up. So, um, while we wait for her feed to come back up, I don't know, Ashaxi, do you have anything to add or any?
nope, I'm just trying to get my messenger to work so that I can. Should we just sign out and try again?
No.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm just going to talk. I'm super excited to talk to Mineko because she is a super positive presence online, and she might be the longest princess of Atenveldt ever. And it'll be interesting to talk to her about that experience if she ever comes back.
Well, I can't even get my messenger to work now, so I think this is going to be the super plagued with issues episode. They are experiencing a big storm, a haboob, and so their internet was already kind of spotty. So I'm not sure if we're gonna get her back or not.
I didn't even know Arizona had storms in August. Like what, like a lightning storm or?
No, a haboob is like one of those big, in like the Mummy movies where the big dust storm.
Oh, like the big sandstorm?
Okay, she says 2 secs, she hopes.
Okay. Well, if anyone has questions for Mineko, put them in the comments and we'll do our best to get to them. And she says she's going to be right back. So,
what do you have coming up in your leveling up?
I actually don't have anything coming up in leveling up, although you are going to do a wire thing, and I am going to ask somebody to do a block printing demonstration with me. But something cool that is happening is next weekend, the weekend of the 21st, we're going to have some fighting up here at my house. And on Friday night, we're going to do a live coach's corner from my living room with a whole bunch of dukes and people from around the known world. So if you have fighting questions, especially maybe on tier related, make sure you tune in for that, and you can send me the questions earlier if you want, or whatever. But that should be super fun. I'm looking forward to it. It was Sean's idea, so we'll see how that goes.
Let's see if you guys can keep from talking over each other.
Well, I don't have that problem.
Well, I wasn't referring to you. Is it going to be just one camera, or are you going to try to split different people up and do different cameras?
That's a really good question. I'm not exactly sure yet how we're going to do that, but oh, somebody wants to talk about my fabulous lipstick. I am glad you think it's fabulous because I put the wrong one on and it was really, really purple. So I had to blend it with one that wasn't so purple. So thank you about that. Haboob at work. Yes, I think you can say haboob at work. So
advice on balancing varied interests and duties within the society. Oh, that's a question from Mineko.
Oh, yes.
All right. She says that Zipster is helping her. She's back up and they're trying to figure it out. So
you want to have some chit chat, like small talk? They want either Ashaxi or I to talk about while we wait for Mineko to come back.
I did some felting today and yesterday.
Cool.
That was super exciting. And I'm still kind of damp, but it's nice because it's really hot here. And
I should go get my shoes and show you what I've done so far.
You should leave me all alone on camera.
I'm gonna leave you all alone on camera. I'll be right back.
Oh yay, Mineko's here. I could hum the Jeopardy theme or something. That would be fun. Ah, it's my favorite picture of them.
All right, we're fixing it.
Tech support is on deck. You went live for like 2 seconds, and then the camera said, "Nay, you shall not."
Well, we are live still, so
Oh, but I don't see her face.
I know.
Fix it.
We decided to just roll with it. So any testing at your equipment that you do right now is going to be live.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Or we could end it. I don't know.
No, this is where it's at right now. We're all about it.
Cool.
Casca would like to know how you survive having such a pretty man in your life.
Well, I mean, I try and commit to daily affirmations that it's okay that Zitzer's prettier than I am. That was step one. And then step two was also to make sure that I remind myself that it's, okay to be the less popular one as well.
So
Everybody likes Nick.
has anyone, because this has happened to me, has anyone mistaken you as his mom?
No,
Oh, no.
but that has happened to Astrid. Oh, look, there's
There's
Nick.
my face, everybody.
Hey.
It has happened to Her Grace Astrid, and she was not pleased.
Yeah, I've had two ladies ask if my husband was my son.
People are lovely.
Super great.
They mean well. So should we just I can see Mineko now, and
There we go.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Can
The nice camera broke, so we had to put the other camera on,
All right.
which has like a completely different focus and everything else. So
So I'll just sit back here, will not straighten
the
in
last
the mirror.
4 hours of Mineko's life just went out the window.
It did. This is where we're at. I'm gonna sit like 5 feet away from the desk and smile at you guys. Can you pull the Zoom video so I can see them?
But you know what? This camera's working better. So
Oh, good. So it's leggy. I mean, it's on, and that's the important thing.
yes.
We've got you. So, Mineko, we usually start these by asking what your SCA origin story is.
Sure. In 2009, I was in ceramics class with this gal named Angie, and I ran into her at a concert, and I said, "Hey, you're that chick from my ceramics class." And I hung out with them for like a year in this giant group of people that they all hung around and went to movies and bowling nights. Like it was just this like conglomeration of friends that all hung out. And then a year later, I went to Estrella. And so 2010 Estrella was my first event.
And did you have somebody who helped you get dressed and took care of you that way?
Absolutely. So Angie, it turns out, is actually Iona. And Iona and Dongal took me to Estrella, and we had a beautiful setup. And she, at some party, had spun me around and introduced me to Livia, who now lives in y'all's neck of the woods and has reigned there, and another wonderful woman named Countess Teal. And I think that she has another SCA name, but I don't know that I've ever heard it used. And they garbed me for my first event. And it was kind of this miraculous thing of these two strangers literally had me thrown their way at a party, ended up giving me a week's worth of clothes. It was really amazing.
That is really cool. So what part of the SCA was really fascinating to you at Estrella?
I think the first thing that got me in was that I was already doing ceramic arts, and it was the classic, I would give somebody a present and it would hit their shelf on display and it would never get used. I'm like, but you drink beer and I make beer mug and I gave you mug to use. And so I realized at an event like Estrella, people use the things that you gift them. And I think that it felt like art wasn't wasted there, if that makes sense. And so I really enjoyed that aspect. And also I'm a total night owl. And if you don't want to, there's people up at all hours. You never have to go to bed. So you can stay up until 5 a.m. and get up at 11 o'clock in the morning and start all over again. And it's just like this continuous rolling fun. And I thought that was pretty awesome.
Very cool. You're that person I hate to camp next to with the kids.
100%. That's actually one of the things that we joke about, is that our camp doesn't have kids. And it's not because, there's, we're a group of people that doesn't have children, but also we have no filters. And so we don't like to have kids in camp because we don't want to censor ourselves or go to bed early or be adults really when we're at SE events. Really, if it's 4 o'clock in the morning and we're yelling and having a good time, that's not unheard of. Which is not actually a good atmosphere for children.
Yeah, that's actually quite considerate.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. We have a hard time separating out those different lifestyles in Ontario, and it ends up not being so good. So anyway,
Go ahead.
I was going to ask when did you get into fighting?
So I authorized in October of 2011, just in time for Great Western War, but it was sometime earlier that year. At the time, there was a gentleman still playing named Duke Eric, and he had reigned a handful of times here. I'm not exactly sure how many predated my playing, but we were just at a practice and sitting on the sidelines talking to people, and I picked up his sword. And it was one of those things where you pick something up and it just feels natural in your hand. And I fidget with people's stuff all the time anyway, so that wasn't by any stretch the first time I picked up someone's like weapon or messed around with it. But that time it felt in my hand like, this is the thing that I want to swing. And from that point on, I started going to Duke Arias' house and hitting his pellet just to see if I had the physicality to do it. I am not by any stretch an athletic human. And so I wanted to make sure it was something that I could do and not feel like I looked ridiculous, if that makes sense, that my muscles would learn that motion. And I had played some tennis in like junior high and high school. What I worked is country club tennis because there was no competitiveness about it. It was just going out and playing. And so a lot of that translated, it turned out, and that worked out well. And then probably 2 months later, I went over to what was then called Duke U. And I think you guys probably heard about that on Trelon's interview. And Duke Eric was the only person there. And I chased Donnie around the yard for probably an hour and a half in sweats. And he just let me chase him and hit him, and he blocked. And every once in a while I'd get one in and he'd get us so excited. Reaffirming a 5-year-old. It was awesome. And so I was pretty much hooked from that point on, and it was, for me, the thing that came the least natural in the SCA. I worked in a corporate environment, and I waited tables for 12 years, 15 years. So talking to people and organizing, or the structure of the SCA as a whole, that was all natural. The volunteerism part and the arts came naturally. So for me, it was the fighting that was the thing that was going to be the hardest. And I felt the thing that would keep me in, because I like challenges. I'm stubborn. I got to figure it out.
How long before you became a pelican?
4 years.
4 years.
It was fast.
So that's super fast. I don't know if it's fast for Atenveldt, but in Ontario that would be like almost unheard of. So
it was quick. At the time when I joined and started going to events in February of 2010, in May there was a Queen's Champion, and I talked to the person that had started the Kingdom Facebook page and group and owned them, and they did absolutely nothing with them. So as a new person trying to find, at least in that kind of digital space, information about events was who you knew and who invited you. So if you weren't someone that knew a bunch of people, then you didn't get invited to that Facebook event piece. and the website was kind of clunky and the calendar wasn't very friendly for actually finding information or updates about stuff. So people just kind of took these own pages and did their thing. And as a newcomer, I asked a friend, Mr. Sabia now, mistress, if she thought it was a good idea if I talked to someone that owned that page to maybe volunteer to take over promoting events and putting them onto the Kingdom's Facebook page instead. And she introduced me to that gentle, and that's 3 months in, started taking care of that, and they gave some new person access. Very trusting. It was awesome. And so yeah, we completely reorganized how the Kingdom promoted and pushed those events out to that group, that space.
And really, really important, because you can't invite new people into your group without having some sort of a connection.
Right. And it really became apparent that we were doing something very different in our Kingdom. There was the president of the board at that time who lived in Kingdom and was a pelican here. And it is my understanding, having not sat that circle, obviously, that she said we're doing something that no other kingdom was doing, and that the society was likely to pattern social media after that, and eventually did. So sorry to all the social media officers out there, we did that to you. But it turned out pretty good, because now it's a full-fledged thing. I mean, I had to make up titles for myself because there wasn't an office. Like if you look at my OP, all of that, you don't really see that it was a thing until I became the, I think, promotions officer for Estrella. But that's just because there was no title for what we were doing. And eventually they're like, we really need to warn you if you're going to be on this page anymore. I'm like, sure, let's call me the social media officer. I don't care. Name it whatever you want, as long as you don't do away with it, I guess.
Yeah, because it's vital. It's super vital. And I think that you're right. I think that our kingdom is still a little behind with recognizing work that's done online, and how much work it takes to maintain Facebook groups, and make sure that people aren't horrible to each other, and just make sure that events get out there and get listed properly.
Yeah, and now it's a different beast too, because there's Instagram and there's more active use of Twitter. There's Discord, and a lot of that is taking way more bandwidth. And so when I coughed up the office, it was definitely to someone that was younger and had a little more digital presence than I did, because I'm like, Facebook is the only thing I use. And I didn't want to be the curmudgeon that held on to something forever when it's not my gig anymore. And there are so many other avenues out there that we're using and utilizing.
And the TikTok.
Right. I can't even have TikTok. It's like legitimately the one app that I'm banned from are like work phones, because it's not safe enough for financial people to use. So I can't have TikToks.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yep.
Good to
I
know.
just have access to too much information through my work.
So I love that you came in new and you saw a need and you filled it and you found the right people to talk to. How would you recommend to somebody in that same position now to find the right people, and to because I think not only our kingdom but other kingdoms could really use some help in this area. No offense, Artemisia, I'm throwing you under the bus, but your calendar sucks.
Yeah, for me, it was literally very fortunate, because I'd hung out with a lot of these people for the year prior that, I knew Renee before I knew Sabia. And so it was literally, I knew that she was a person that had this kind of can do, we'll figure it out attitude. And so I think it's really identifying the person that is your kind of social, using the word lubricant is really odd, but I'm going to say it anyway, like the social lubricant, the person that can figure out like who they need to talk to and doesn't care. It's the problem solver, it's the networking person. And at least in Atenveldt, I'm very much one of those people, and the people I socialize with are those, we just want to figure it out and get it done. It doesn't there's not an ego attached to it. You got to find the person that will just happily pass you to the person that's the right fit. And so for a new person that's trying to do that, I think probably just kind of getting out there and seeing who's shaking their tail, you know, and smiling and happy, because, you know, just the light kind of shines for the people that want to do the helping, I think, if that makes sense.
It does. I think that people who are willing to roll up their sleeves and get in there are definitely really easy to notice. And hopefully they get hooked up with the right people.
Yeah, our webman actually just put together with his team a page where pelicans can list their information, what they specialize in. Although we know that most pelicans really will roll up and do whatever's needed, but provide a contact point for people. And so for me, you know, being a social media person, or, you know, Chamberlain or Chatelaine, whatever we want to call it, they can go and click through all of our little faces and hit the button to contact, and then I think it shoots us an email. I'm not actually sure how we get contact from there, but we filled out a little summary and a survey, and then our picture showed up, and like, I think a link to our OP or wiki or something.
Super cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah, and that was just something that they all did during the pandemic. Our Atenveldt.org got a complete reboot, and it's really something fantastic, honestly. Seeing how it's all kind of panned out, it's been rather beautiful considering the clunker that it was not a year ago.
Well, I have to give your kingdom props, because there was a while there where your kingdom was like the only kingdom that had relevant facts about COVID and how you guys were going to reopen, and frequently asked questions. It was great. I don't know who deserves the credit there, but your website and the transparency that the leadership put up through the website was amazing.
I think with a lot of things that get done behind the scenes that we don't give enough credit for, we're going to throw the Seneschal's office right out there, because they, along with their crowns, Morgan and Elizabeth, we came through and we had the meetings with our peers, and then Duchess Nichelle, who is currently our emergency deputy, went through and compiled the information from all of our peer meetings, and then our populace meeting, and the things that kind of came through the most as far as what was really important to people. And she pulled all that into the page, and then the webman formatted and threw it up there. It worked out really well.
It was incredible. I just really want to give props to her, because I was blown away.
Yeah. We are super, super fortunate, because Morgan and Elizabeth and Zipster and myself, we all talked really early on, and, you know, did we want to do a virtual step up? Did we want to pass the reins during COVID? And we kind of thought of some creative ways we could do that and make it a little fantasy and different. You know, if we've got to do this virtual thing, like, do we go out into the woods somewhere with some torches, like it's some clandestine passing over of royalty? And we had these thoughts, but at the end of the day, we like the optic that there's 5 people, you know. And then when Nichelle came in and took a more active role, 6 people now making decisions for our kingdom, as we're kind of transitioning from this digital space back into being in person. And what does that mean? And we're super fortunate, because we all come from different backgrounds, but I think the background that's the most important is we have an absolute care for the people that are around us. We want to make sure that everyone's safe and that we're doing the right thing, you know, and balancing that with this kind of need to get back to life. And what does that mean for people? You know, once I think immunization became a reality for anybody over 12, and you can walk into any CVS or Costco right now and get your shots. There's not a wait. And so once that became the reality, well, now it's the choice, right? That's the choice for people not to get vaccinated. So I think when the bod lifted what the restrictions were, I think we decided that, you know, being outdoors and small scale little things like 100, 150 people made sense for those that were comfortable doing it. And so what we're doing for us is we are returning back with these days in the park, and we're kind of calling it the back to basics, which is perfect because Nick and I are on 101. And so we felt like it was kind of this like intro to the SCA course where we can go to the park and people that are going to fight can fight, people that are going to art are definitely going to art. And, you know, some people just want to help and visit and socialize. And that became very important to us, that we take these days. And this is actually Michelle's mom, Duchess Lynn and Sir Don Gall had this kind of idea in one of our groups of, you know, making these free. So there wasn't a financial burden. If you got to the park and you realized this is too many people, I have seen nobody but my cat, my dog, and my boyfriend in a year and a half. This is not okay. Turn around, wrap up the car. We're going home, babe. Like, we didn't want you to have spent $20 in a 2-hour drive only to be like, we're out of here. So we wanted to make it comfortable for people to come back and ease in. And so we have North, Central, and Southern days in the park, and they're totally free. So if you're going to bring out a new person that feels like getting to know you, or all the people that found us during the pandemic, they now have that option to do so without penalty. There's no financial to it because there's no non-member search if there's no event fee. And it's just these open parks. It's really low cost for a kingdom who hasn't spent money in a year and a half anyway to do this thing. And so we're really, really happy that we've been able to do it.
That's really cool. I didn't know you guys were doing that, but
Yep.
I love that idea.
It's really better than Coronation, honestly. Now that we've had to unfortunately cancel Astoria, the only thing on the calendar for the year. We have nothing on the calendar after Coronation, and I want to put something together. So if there's any like people out there that have a really cool idea, then hit me up. But as of right now, we are calendarless after Coronation until January. And so we kind of just want to make sure that we're not throwing the cart before the horse.
Yeah, it's a really hard place to be in making decisions, because the future is so uncertain right now.
It is, and it's so hard. It's so hard because, you know, I have these tickets to Lily's. I have my pre-reg in for Great Western War, and I'm just sitting here going like this. But if things get canceled, they get canceled, and nothing is worth a life.
Yeah,
So.
for sure. I've been watching the pictures come through for the little park events, and I think that's the best idea because it's so low pressure, and it's actually a small enough number of people that you can get socializing in. Our Crown got canceled, but our first event back was going to be Crown, with like all of these meetings and all of these court business that had to happen, and it was just like, that's too much.
Yeah, we weren't even going to hold courts or awards, or like, unless we had little pop-up, like sneak up behind someone and surprise them with an AOA kind of thing. But we weren't going to do anything. And then we realized that I think Morgan and Liz still had like 5 or 6 peerages in the bucket. And so we didn't want to make Coronation days so overwhelming. Then we talked about doing like a Friday night peerage court. And then that became like, well, what does that look like for 8 o'clock, everybody, or 7:30 o'clock, I thought was going to go. We weren't sure what that was going to look like. So a lot of the people asked if they could do them in the park, and we're like, okay. So we did the peerage offering at the central one. We have 2 pelicans in the southern. So some of those are getting done now, which is nice, but otherwise there wouldn't have been any court.
I really like that you guys did that.
So can I rewind for a second and go back to your path to Pelican? Did you understand at the time that there was this peerage path for service? And if so, did you have a mentor, like officially or unofficially?
Unofficially, my mentor was Count Casca. And mostly that was, I was at his house every single weekend building my helmet and my subsequent armor. And so when the questions started to roll in of who's your peer, and I wasn't sure that I wanted to pursue an official relationship with anyone, I just started saying, well, if you have anyone you need to talk to Casca. Because one, if it was some part of my language bullshit, they were going to be too scared, right? Like everybody knows the gravity of, like, if you're going to come to Costco with some complaints, it better be real. And so I knew that that was going to be a thing of nobody was going to bring him something trifling. And if they wanted to bring compliments, then he would determine how to pass that along or talk about what people had to say. And I knew that whatever he led me down would be the right path. And just watching how he nurtured his family and his peers and treated his friendships was really important to me. So he was my unofficial. So not this medallion, but the one I received in my ceremony has 3 little garnets on it. And it was originally Dennis's medallion, who was the first pelican of Atenveldt, and then it was Casca's, and then it became mine. So that's why we designated that.
Wonderful. What is some advice you would give to someone who is seeking a peer?
Spend time with them. And I think that's probably the answer you would hear the most, just spend time with the people that you feel that you're going to become a student to. But also make sure that your values are the same. You don't have the same opinions. You don't have to agree, because I think the best thing about having real relationships is you don't agree with people, but you talk things out and you have the same sort of communication skills. And so for me, having those values and being able to accept criticism, I think is super important. And so that the person that you pick has the same values as you, and then you communicate well, because at the end of the day, that's really the most we have is our interpersonal skills, I think. And some people need to learn that, and that's the peer that they need, is a person that they can teach them the interpersonal skills, and that's fine too. And so maybe find someone you want to emulate. I mean, because that's I think really important as a tool, is that you can emulate someone until you feel that you have your own voice, I think. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
No,
Yeah, it
definitely.
totally makes sense. Do you have any students that you've been fostering?
I do. So I was very fortunate to be like a small pure portion of Nora Rose Tenpenny, who was elevated last Estrella, and I think there were 7 of us that took her on. She's a longtime servant of the kingdom, and it had some roads that she had to hoe, and some, I think, some paths that she needed to kind of rake up and kind of find joy and service again. And so there was a group of us that decided that we all knew that she had the chops to be the pelican, right? She would outserved certainly me and a lot of us on that road, and we just needed to be her voice. And so the group of us took that duty on, and we each gave her little mementos. So whether like one person gave her a belt, I gave her one of the first Viking brooches I made. And we all took that little piece, and then last Estrella, she was elevated. Kith is one of my students, and that comes by natural, good-hearted joke making, because someone gave him a belt or made him a belt, and it's some like really fancy weave where the inside is yellow and the outside is white, because they put L's on it because he was knighted at 50 here. And so when someone saw that belt, I think that they thought they were going to give him a hard time, like, why is the inside of your belt yellow? What are you, a pelican student? I'm like, yeah, it's mine. You want to talk more trash? Like, it's his knight's belt. It's white. it's just how it's woven, guy. So that's how that happened. And then Sir Matthias, who currently lives in the Outlands, and he was one of Duke Arius's squires, and I took him as a student the same day that he was offered his knighthood. And Arius and I talked it out. I'm like, do I still do this? Because it's got offered, and literally the thing that I said I wanted to do was take him as my student, to make sure that he was such a hard worker, and he would take all these awesome jobs at the detriment of his fighting, and it would take him off the field because he didn't know how to say no. Because if he could do it, he would do it. And turns out he could do everything, so he was never fighting and always volunteering, which is great for some people, not so much when you're a squire. So he became my student as well, and we decided that it was some sort of, kind of perfect note, because I had become a squire the day I got my pelican, and he became my pelican student the day he really stopped being a squire, if you think about it. So yeah, so that's my 3.
Very cool. Oh, I had a question to follow up and now it just went out of my head. Shoot.
You can come back to it. It's fine.
I know what it is. So how do you balance? Because you fight and you serve and you art. What is your kind of rule for balancing, and how do you pass that on to students like
So
him?
for me, I never took a job that would take me away from the field. And even when I was the royal liaison at Estrella, I'm the night owl. So what shift do I cover for the royals? The evening time, the party hours. And the first person up in the morning was either Dionysia or Mariana. So they took the daytime shifts. And also I had full access to the internet during the day, all the time at work. So I did a lot of the preliminary pre-war activities and planning and stuff. So we basically divided up the job. So I never had to step off the field for a royal emergency. So that's how I did it. And, you know, with everything being social media and promotions, it was maybe 15 hours on the computer over the week, but it wasn't ever something that took me off the field. And as far as art and fighting and service, I just take a ceramics class every Wednesday night, and I'm pretty faithful to that. If it's open, I'm there. And sometimes that means I don't go to practice on Thursdays because I make something on Wednesday that has to be dealt with on Thursday. But if that's the worst thing that happens, then, you know, count that against me, guys. I don't. I'll go to the next event, and I out event almost everybody in the kingdom except probably Morgan. So, you know, nobody can complain too much about that. But yeah, that's how I balanced it. I kind of made a rule early on that I wouldn't get taken off the field, and that was how my service went.
A good rule. It's a good rule.
Oh, are you looking at me?
Trying to get you with my laser eyes. Say something.
Oh, I had a question. How did I know you're a squire? How did you choose your knight?
So I wasn't sure I wanted a squire because my brain somewhere I thought that if I picked one, I would insult the lot. And I had so many amazing teachers that I wasn't sure. And then when Fran Ball got offered, I knew that was the person that I wanted to be my. We were spending all the time. I mean, literally, I decided on Thanksgiving because he and Dionysia were in my home for Thanksgiving, and we had gone on a walk after dinner. I'm like, trucking down on our walk, and I just turn around. I'm like, it's you. If you still want me, because he kind of made a comment once. I'm like, then you're the guy, and let's do this. And we kind of talked about it a little bit after that. And I think the picture you'll show in a little bit of my offering was at a war practice in January. So basically sometime between November and January, that decision was made at a circle they were going to offer me. And so then it was like this huge debate of, well, is she still going to be my squire? Like, is this still going to be a thing? And so I think he and Joel Duke Morgan talked about it a lot, about whether or not it would be okay. And then he sought counsel with a ton of pelicans locally. His Majesty Bela and another knight that's passed had used to get me at events and be like, when are you going to be my squire? When are you going to be my squire? I'm like, I can't squire to an out of kingdom knight. That'll just mess everything up at home, because there's a very much an Atenveldt psychology that you don't squire out of kingdom because it means that none of your local knights are your guy and or good enough. And you know, with apologies to Valora, she wasn't knighted, I don't think, then when I made my, no, she was knighted then, but I keep saying guys, and it's just such a male driven group that and guys is this like universal adjective for me. But I think that I didn't know that I wanted it until Franny got offered. He'd had a long road. He'd been a squire for 17 plus years to guy. Yeah. I keep rambling. Want me to ramble some more? I can do it.
No. I somebody actually asked and I'll just put this in because I don't know when we'll get to it, but what made you make the decision of opening your Queen's Champion to Chivalry as well?
This is a good question because this is a Buck and Atenveldt tradition. And I think a lot of Kingdom's traditions. Many years ago, Casca asked if I ever were queen, that if he could fight in my champion. And I told him yes, that absolutely. There couldn't think of anybody that I would say, yes to but him at that time. And then he moved. So Nikita begged that same boon, and I'm looking at Nikita going, well, if I was going to tell Koski yes, how would I tell Nikita no? And so I said, well, if I do it for you, I do it for everybody. That means you have to beat them all. I'm not going to do it just for you, and which is kind of funny. But it basically means that all the knights get to fight in my Queen's Champion, and good luck to them all, because Nikita's probably going to be super fierce that day.
So can you explain how the tournament works to choose your Queen's Champion? Because we don't have a heavy Queen's Champion here.
We determine it ourselves, however we want, as far as the Queen's Champion. So for me, because we're all coming back off of this long hiatus, I'm highly likely, take notes if you're watching, highly likely to have a bear pit, bring your best, and we'll run that for an allotted time, and then have a final probably 8, maybe 10, depending on the day, single elimination. And then the victor may or may not be my champion, or I may pick one, because that's my prerogative. I hear to do stuff like that now. I'm pretty pumped about prerogative.
And as your champion, what is that role like? What do they do?
I think it's different for everyone. Most people just want you to show up, honestly, like show up and present, and at least for me, enjoy the event. And you get to stand behind me with a cool sword looming over people. I think that's probably why Nikita wants the job. But it's really a job of presence and availability. And if I need someone to push out into a tournament or represent me, or who knows what, then that will be my guy. And it could be a girl. I mean, Valora can beat Nikita too, so we'll see what happens.
Is the tournament only open to Atenvelders?
No, I will allow whoever shows up today with armor to fight. However, Atenvelders will only be available to be my champion. So I welcome whoever would like to bring armor that day and is available and authorized to show up and fight. But yeah, and Atenvelder will take the day at the end. They don't have to win the tournament. I mean, Casca could still come in and win the tournament, and who knows who will be champion then.
And is that going to be at your coronation? Yes.
So the way we're structuring the day, and this is totally also bucking in the face of tradition, we're just messing everything up this event. We're going to have the champion attorneys during the day, and we're going to basically start with a court of Morgan and Elizabeth, and then roll into champions, and then in the afternoon, early evening, we'll have the actual coronation court. And then the next day, we were going to call it an Estrella war practice, but instead we're just going to call it war practice, and whomever can come out and melee and spend that time on the field. And if we don't have enough full-scale melee, then we can do some small skirmishes or pickups, whatever the day is. We just want people to come out and fight. I mean, there's a lot of people that, you know, haven't put on armor, been out and kept up their skills in a half, and by all means, we want to have fun. And I know I didn't break well, and it took me probably 5 or 6 practices to kind of get back into the literal swing of things and remember what is a shield for. And so I can't be the only one, guys. So let's do this, you know, and let's come out in melee, because, you know, we still have Go Force to attend, and Battleborn and Lilies and Penzik and the whole nine. And Atenveldt has always been a fierce melee kingdom, and definitely having that war in our backyard fostered that, but now we get to travel and show our strength elsewhere too.
My feet always forget what to do.
Like, it was fun to watch Nick not be able to throw a flat snap because it was ridiculous. He's got this incredibly fast flat snap and it was rusty. It was bizarre for everyone.
I noticed that you didn't mention Ontario West War. Have you ever been to an Ontario West War?
I have not been to Ontario West War, and that is entirely because it is pitted up against Battleborn, and Battleborn is where our family goes. And so we get to see the whole clan of, you know, not only my household, the Brotherhood of the Bengal, but also Nick's legitimate family with Bobby and Mage and Gabe and Morgan and everybody. So that's our family war. I mean,
I guess that's acceptable.
everyone. Yeah, I've been to every single one of them, and I think a lot of people get to say that. So I'm there. Can't miss it.
Nope. Okay, well, fine then. I won't invite.
One of these days, maybe if Battleborn something happens and they cancel and you guys don't, or something, I'll figure out how to fly into Portland and then drive 5 hours to the coast. Is that how it goes? Like,
Yeah,
there's no clean way in the war that I've figured out. I looked at it hard, trying to figure out how to get 50 pounds of armor and 50 pounds of clothes, because I bring
Might almost be better to fly into California. I'm not sure.
It's,
have no
it's
idea.
a beautiful site, but it's not easy to get to. It's very remote.
Yeah, I think that was my last plan. When I was talking to Asa, was I was going to fly into Portland. We were going to make it work, and then I didn't go. Something else happened.
Well, who knows if how long it's going to take us to get our act together. So it's all just pipe dreams right now.
The SCA will be when it is, right? Like, I am urgency that we all have to be social again, but I don't feel it's going away if we breaks and need to be cautious. And maybe, that makes me less than the Pollyanna and more little doom and gloom, but I can be a little conservative with that. For me right now, I don't know that I feel comfortable going to an indoor event. If something's indoor, I'll probably either skip, or if there's a slice that I have to do, we'll ask if they'll do it outside, and then I'll leave, because I don't know that I want to be indoors with some of my closest friends quite yet. I'm hoping that it will be by your 12th night, if that's still a thing in January. I have the hotel room and the ticket, I think, already.
That might actually be our crown tourney as well. So you might get it all.
We'll see. Well, I kind of went crazy doing your slideshow, and I pulled a lot of pictures.
Can I ask a question while you load them up?
Yeah.
I'm genetically half Japanese, so you had a lot of photos to go through. I'm very happy with the pictures. Rifkin, what were you going to ask?
I was going to ask if you are primarily a sword and shield fighter, or do you rock something else at wars?
I am a sword and shield fighter. I basically cut my teeth on the melee field. The first war I went to, I used a spear, and I basically followed Sean South around with a spear and just like speared over his shoulder on a bridge, and ran around an open field and was completely useless and didn't like it. So then I picked up his sword and shield for melee as well. And then I followed Nikita around for like 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years, and literally just followed him around because he was the one person I knew that wouldn't lose me on the melee field, because there's no way he's moving faster than I can. Turns out he can. I was wrong, but that's because he just bowls through people real fast. But yeah, I followed him around, and it was a really good example. And then I learned about mama birding, and I never looked back. So now I just mama bird people, and it's my happy place.
So I don't know that term. What does that mean?
Basically, you slide up behind spearmen and you block for them with your shield. And so Duke Miles calls it mama birding, and I don't know if there's a better term for it, but that's the one we all learned. So,
That's what I do in melees too.
yeah.
We just call
I
it.
love it. I feel like every time a spearman kills somebody, I get like one little pie slice of that victory.
I just like having a job.
I do too. And it makes me really happy. And then somebody will inevitably like point at me and they're like, you charge. I'm like, me, no.
No, I don't do that. I stick with the spear.
5'5". I like here. I don't move fast by any stretch. I literally tried to follow Stavros through a charge once and I bounced off of this giant shield and just flew back like 5 feet and just laid there. And literally the whole next like afternoon on the merchant's row, people were like, hey, you're that girl that flew off of the shield. I'm like, yeah, it was super. I don't charge anymore. But I think that was literally the last time I charged.
Nice. All right.
Okay, so pictures.
So luckily, you went through this with me earlier just quickly, and we got to remember that this was Dionysia and myself for Duke Ivan and Duchess Yucca, and that was his outer layer. And she supplied us with gorgeous fabrics and trim because they are exceptional artisans and make beautiful trim. So really, really, really pretty things to work with. So
I love the way that you did the braided loops for the buttons on this.
yeah, that ended up working well. Like I think I stole that right off of Mariana's garment, not like literally the trim itself, but the idea off of her garments that she had given me, where she just had the trim or the braid sewed to the edge, and I really liked how that worked. And Dionysia is really, really exceptional at kind of piecing together all the things. And so she laid out all the garments for that. This is a very, very tiny close-up a la Asa and Steve Sophia from the West at the time of a tiny little Van Dyke. And Asa used to always throw a dot on there to show you how small our stitches were. So I'm like, well, I'm going to get my stitches as small as Asa's. And that's how that picture came out.
And they look great.
Thanks. Sir Elric from the Outland is a beautiful, beautiful silversmith. And I'm very fortunate because he owes me in a trade. And so an item he asked me to make him, and he produced the pictures, and I threw the pot and tried to figure out how to make those fun little ribs. And it's strangely harder than it looks to kind of make something imperfect. So that's the wet work on that one, and me trying to make sure that I was not taking my modern eye to the older piece. This is a hood that I made for Nora Rose because she wanted to be Little Red Riding Hood. And so I had a piece of red wool that I spun for her. And she was one of those people that always was in an event without a coat. So the hood was the closest thing we could get. Little penannulars. So Duke Arthur is very gracious and wonderful and opens up his home almost weekly and has for as long as I've known him for an open shop. And if you have a project or an idea and want to work on it, you can go to his house. And he will teach you the skills, or at least let you use his hammer, and then laugh at you for how you use his hammer, because I never swung a hammer before. And there's a lot of mocking, but eventually figured it out. So these were penannulars that helped me make and shine up. And this is a crazy idea chain that I had. Sir Sean of the Chippendales from out in Volunteer has dovetails opposed on his heraldry, which makes it look like a band of bow ties. And then he has these delightful little chipmunks or squirrels, chipmunks are a New World animal on his shield, so Chippendale bow ties. And now he has a bow tie chain, which is currently being worn by His Majesty Morgan, because he is the newest of the Chippendales. So the Chippendales, if you're of the Chippendales, and Sean, I believe, is the only person that gets to decide this, it kind of means that you're into hijinks and tomfoolery. and you in general get kingdoms to have a good time whether they like it or not. And so I made him a bow tie chain.
Very cool.
Art helped me make that as well. Again, little stitching, because back there was a time when I would finish my seams. This is an event or an item that I made for the Outlands Artisan Exchange, and I made this for Duchess Berengaria, and it was a laurel wreath. I'm assuming she still has it, made out of antler, because Outlands do antler. That made sense to me.
Really cool.
Yeah, and Master Liat helped me make that. This was another item for an Outlands Arts Exchange, and I made this for Pelican, a leather court barony, and she's a laurel, so she was all the things, and very talented artist herself, and so it was daunting to make this for her. So I made Nick help me, and there's another general in the Outlands, Calgon, who makes beautiful leather cornets, and I totally messaged him 800 times to help me with that project.
So,
because I never do anything simple. I think you two are probably the same. You're like, I want to make the whole thing. So how many people can I annoy by messaging them until I have enough skills to finish this project in my mind? So that's how that, and this is Duchess Cassandra's help and tutelage. Basically, we said we want Venetians, and she said how period appropriate, and Melanie went, I think, super period appropriate. I said I want a Duchess Cassandra Venetian. I thought it was clear, like I want one that looks like yours. So that's what we came up with, and she made me purl the sleeves, and I will probably never ever purl another sleeve as long as I live.
so can I ask you what the Outlands exchange is? Is that like a Secret Santa thing, or?
I call it Chaos, Kingdom of the Outlands Artisan Swap. And it came about as just kind of a secret gift exchange where everybody fills out a survey of their interests, you know, what do they need? And there was always a theme. There was like hearth and home or new art or something along those lines. And people would say what their personas were if they had one, or what were their interests on the field. I think one year I made a fencing cape. I knew literally nothing about fencing capes and figured that out. I always used it as something, as a vehicle to try something new. So I may not have ever made another leather cornet, but I made that one. And so that's how I got into that artisan exchange, because I just thought it was such a cool idea. And I always joined the one where the exchange was at Battleborn, since I was going to be there anyway. And they were kind enough to let this old foreigner do her part.
Very cool.
Yeah, so this is Kafka and myself, and I was the Twin Moons Shield of Chivalry that year, and they had this gigantic, huge shield that was the size of me that I got past when I became the Shield of Chivalry. I'm like, what am I gonna do? Keep it in my garage. Sweet, Costco, let's make a new shield. So we went to Industrial Metal Supply and got some supplies and ordered a boss, and there we have it. Or maybe we made that boss. That looks like one we might have made. Probably killed it, because we would come up with these great ideas, and then whoever was at the shop got to do side projects. So you dish this boss, you let's help me bend the shield, you let's do this. So everybody always had something working on, and if you spend enough time, then eventually you left with the project that you really wanted, but you also had to cut 800 knee cops out, whatever it is.
So what did you have to do to be the Shield of Chivalry for?
They have a few tournaments during the day, the Baronial Defender and Champion, and the Shield of Chivalry is picked. So I must have comported myself exceptionally well on the field that day, clearly. I think I even at one point during that day had taken someone's arm, and they were one of those people that would cough up their arm if they armed you. And I was like, haha, but I don't give up an advantage. I'm not that chivalrous. Like literally the words, I'm not chivalrous, came out of my mouth, because I don't give up my earned advantage. as Duke Arias, probably like clapping in the background right now, taught me, and literally then became the chivalry. It's like, but I said on the field, I'm not a chivalrous. I mean, okay, cool. And speaking of Duke Arias, was I think one of the first SCA, air quotes out there, because all of my SCA cups are not super historical except for the ones I make Elric. That was one of the early aughts. And I have a Kismet, so random squeaking guitar or a loop out. That is Mariana's coffee mug. I think that is the only Mariana item that has survived Mariana. She is for breaking them. This is Nora Rose's. She said she wanted something with a thistle, and I just looked at these cool Viking cups, so I completely anachronized it and carved thistles into it. Because I can't take a period form and not do something completely heinously out of period to it.
I love the texture on these, on this one.
It is really cool, and she still has that too. I was looking at a really neat little pattern book of period patterns, and so I was making forms that I'm pretty sure, I mean, beakers date pretty far, and then I saw these cool palmettos and chechi and pomegranates, and I just basically took clip art out of a book and applied them to mugs because I was starting to learn the black and figure it out.
Cool.
And I do wood fire classes at the Art Center and Soda Fire, so a lot of my pieces are unglazed. And these are Langobardic. These are actually pretty great. These are right off of a fine piece. And I made the originals of those for Dionysian Trembald. His persona is Langobardic. And those are what I only know as the mom cups. Knights of St. Martin. I knew I'd remember that eventually. Mom cups are there in the background, and then Elric's Slavic Burka cups are in the front. Or maybe Viking Burka, not Slavic. That is my facsimile of a Roman oil lamp. They had really cool molds that they made for those. So they didn't have to figure out how to slab it onto a throne piece. These are my version of a Germanic, like 15th, early 16th century mug. And any of the stamps on these I carve and figure out. There's a good diagram of the Langobardic piece.
So these are yours on the right, and then these are the period pieces.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Those necks are so skinny that I usually try and alter it just a little bit, right? So you can clean your cup thing. So the year that I rumbled into the Brotherhood of the Bengal, there was the Dirty Dozen as we started out the day. And so I made a bunch of these cups. And whenever I make cups at this kind of scale, I make a couple extra. And then that day, Count Daoud also rumbled with. So then we became the Lucky 13.
So what does rumbling mean? What is that?
So for Brotherhood of the Bengal, it's a household primarily based out of the Outlands, and you kind of prospect for the year, and you make sure that you can camp well together, that you socialize well together, you fight on the field. It's the dating period, if you will. And then at the end of the year, there's whatever members of the Brotherhood are on the field, you take the field against them. And you do it for honor, courage, and brotherhood. And so each individual person fights their way through. And at the end of the day, I gave all those that went through with me. Because I like bringing gifts. Again, Japanese heritage. Hostess gifts are real.
Cool.
And Costa gave Arthur his pelican. It was something that we knew would be contentious, perhaps. And because, you know, there's a lot of us out there that say never a pelican, like, don't you give me one more period. And so that was the cup that I made for Casca to give to Arthur. So we'd have something breakable and maybe be afraid to, and, you know, throw it on the ground or something. So, it's a knight pelican laurel. And if it's not very clear, there is a lion on the the chain around the bird's neck.
Cool.
Some little Viking cups. Figuring out comb work. It's hard, tedious.
I love the shape of this turquoise.
Yeah, it turned out neat. And that one in the front right corner, I actually made the vessel, but the painting was done by one of my mom's animation friends. Brought out a friend of hers that was like an art teacher in California, and he and they had gone to one of the Native American museums locally. So I believe it was Hopi, and if I'm wrong, forgive me if somebody knows better out there than me. And he just sketched that with the paint. It's incredibly hard to get an even pattern around the mug, and I was just like in awe. And I still have it in my pantry. It's my little juice cup.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, he did a beautiful job. And then also while he was there, he sat and sketched me, and I have like great drawing of myself painting on a vase or something downstairs in my house. Yeah, you're very talented. So I tend to make little firing photos so I can remember what glazes look like when I pull them out. And so this little stack of bowls. Sir Gabe, that mug probably holds like a good 40 ounces at the time it was made. It later fell prey to, I think, breaking ice in a cooler, but I think he might have most of it somewhere. I made him another one. Made some Rex and Regina mugs for our guests.
Do you have a like a template for letters, or do you freeform those?
Everything is hand drawn on with the ye old number 2 pencil, and then I paint on them. In this case, it was wax resist, so I'll either use black ink for most of it, or something like this where it's wax resist, and that stops the glaze from adhering to the vessel where the wax is. This was for Samisa Whale out of the Outlands. She lives that way, and her very wonderful husband asked if I would make her a wave cup, and I said, of course. And he said, well, what do you want from me? And I said, not your money. And so now I have Sir Thomas, not Count Thomas, Sir Thomas Winterbourne song. And so if anybody ever wants to look it up, it's called Sunshine. It's pretty great. I think he posted a slow bardic video of singing it with the acoustic guitar.
The glaze on this, there are a bunch of pictures of it. It's just beautiful. Was it salt fired, or is it?
It was, I believe, wood fired, and it's a Makoshino, which is a Japanese glaze, and then where the wax adheres to it changes it, and the black ink, and I think I put some blue wash on it. It was everything that could have happened right with the cup. It's sitting there on that screen. It turned out really well.
It's just a gorgeous piece.
Thank you. I am usually pretty neg on a lot of my stuff, but that one I couldn't find any fault with it. This is a gal that painted my shield with a lot of personal heraldry, and she wanted Egyptian. So I got to look up a bunch of ancient Egyptian imagery and colors and fans, glazes, and pieces, and it's a rabbit hole. If anybody wants to look into it, they have some really cool stuff. But that kind of buttery yellow and aqua shows up a lot. I was very fortunate to work with Galena, who made all of those amazing beads, and made Zipster's medallion. I wanted to make something different since he was receiving a metalworking medallion or metalworking laurel. I didn't want to make him a metal medallion that he could have made himself better. So I made that shape for him to match the shield with those little foxies on it. And I made him work it to rivet it to the back plate. Because
Did we lose her?
Okay, then we didn't.
So Mistress Jean-Marie from the Outlands, who I also have like this wonderful bartering system with, wanted a very specific cup that she found in a painting And so this was version 1, and version 2 turned out better and more white, like the piece that you see there. But version 1 was just so dang pretty, even though it wasn't as true, all the leaves like blew out and got kind of lost. But she loves them, and I'm very fortunate because she's an incredible weaver. She makes gorgeous woven materials.
Wow. I love this design. I think it's really cool.
It's really, really pretty. So when Ilanon decided that he was going to give Ferwolf and Dobrosh, otherwise known as Maggie Court Baronese, he asked who he may reach out to make their Court Barony coronets. And I said, me. And I entreated His Grace Arthur once again to help me, because I have these great ideas, not so much the skill to complete the task. I knew that I could cut the shields and the bands and stamp them, but the soldering bits, that was His Grace Arthur, luckily. And so these pieces here were for Thierry and Ulfer when they were Viscount of the West, and Elric helped walk me through a lot of this project with regard to using the tape as a guide and making sure your little lines are straight, so you have a little like actual edge to place your stamp against, and that worked like gangbusters. And then again, you guessed it, back to arts for soldering. So art is a godsend to me to allow me to complete these harebrained ideas I have. And whenever I kind of go off the rails on these SCA pieces, I at least try and have some sort of documentable inspiration. So that was the inspiration for Scott and Maggie's piece.
And I have more pictures of that piece.
Yeah, I mean, we went all out with trying to figure out how we wanted to do these things, and the little shield pieces and how we inverted them to make the points, and it was really cool. And test strikes after test strikes, the stamps right, because I had the little bow tie piece and I had the little pizza slices, but we made the teeth ones. I think Navarro helped me make the teeth, the original version of my teeth stamp.
Very cool.
So this turned out really cool. And you know, for someone as period appropriate as they are, you know, him this very SCA-ism, I didn't want to stand out too much from their exemplary garb and persons, how they present themselves.
Yeah, they're pretty amazing.
Yeah, you know, there's two people that I wish I could dress as finely as. One is His Grace Thorfinn in Viking garb, and the other is Scott. You know, the two of them just have the coolest swaggery style, and a lot of it is like 98% confidence, but also the silk doesn't hurt. So these are faces familiar to you, Livia and Morgan, who were then king and queen. I was their chatelaine, and there's Franbald on the left looking so serious as I'm being offered my pelican. They were right there in that picture, I'm sure, going, well, we know you picked this path, but in all paths there are roadblocks. We hope this isn't one of them, and that you will still choose to become a squire after we do this thing. And then they offered.
But they did kind of a bait and switch, because I think you thought you were up there to become a squire, yeah?
Yeah, and it was like, but we were doing this in Australia. I thought we talked. So it ended up working out.
Total surprise.
Total surprise. I'm not good at in front of people. In fact, I absolutely loathe it with everything that I am. Showing emotion in public makes me incredibly uncomfortable, and they made me cry. And I think there's this like horrible tissue picture of me just going like this because I didn't know what just happened to me. And there's like the half a dozen people that like Rolodex through your head of why me, not them.
Yep.
And I had a really hard time processing that, like that, and a lot of that's become right in the years since, but I did not understand it. I'm like, did they not have the same advocates? Did they not do the work? Because I'm 98% sure that the work, like what happened? And so you learn so much when you go circles.
Yeah, and I felt the same way when I got elevated, and it became my mission to make sure that all of those people got elevated, and they did.
I'm so close, so close. So this is what I call the lost mug, because it never made it to the home it was supposed to go to, but I do over that I've completed and messaged the gal about. But this was for Sophia as well, and it's just, there's a bracelet with these divine little happy birds with their little word blurb designs, and I thought they needed to be on a mug because they look like the day and having the greatest forever.
They're so cute.
They are so cute. And I was so happy that I was like, finally remembered. It's like, I need to make Sophia that mug again. This is my beautiful scroll that they forgot to present the night of my elevation because things happen. And so we did it the next day. And this is by Countess Anna, then Mistress of the Pelican. And everybody gave me grief. They said she was a Mistress Anna. I wanted to point out that she's a pelican, and I thought that was important given her quality of work.
Beautiful.
It's gorgeous, and it hangs on my wall with pride. And so this is all of us in our vestial whites as part of the Casca ceremony. And so Casca has this really beautiful thing where he calls friendship favors. There's a handful of us women that hold those favors, and so he called us all to his side for his coronation. And this is His Grace Aelenon looking very serious, giving me my hawk's lure. And while it was amazing to get a hawk's lure, it was amazing to get one from someone with absolute prowess that Aelenon has. Also present that day were the crowns who created the hawk's lure when Outlands was part of Atenveldt. So I got to meet those two, and they said that they never thought they would see another one given out with their own eyes, and I thought that was pretty neat. But it got to be me.
Super cool.
Yeah.
So what is a hawk's lure?
The hawk's lure is our second fighting award, and while it has a focus on prowess, it also speaks to teaching. And while I am trying to get better at the teaching part, that day I had, I think, like, was the final 5 or 6 in the Outlands Sword and Shield tournament. So it was I think more because I had placed well in that tournament that day.
Very cool.
Couldn't do well in the Squires tournament, no, but the Sword and Shield tournament with all the knights, that one I did okay. How does that work? I don't know. It's happened more than once, though. It makes me
No
laugh.
expectation?
I think it's people triggering a fight, right? And allowing dumb things to happen to you while you're waiting for their move. Maybe. I don't know. That's all theory. This
That's cool.
is the coolest picture. This is by Celestria, and she is a very talented photographer, and she catches some really cool stuff like this. And she's very kind, because if she isn't sure you like the photo, she'll send it to you before she publishes it. Melee photo. I am there on the right, like 1, 2, 3 people up. Just got my shield out there and my sword. I'm ready to go.
I just thought this was a really cool picture.
It is a really cool picture because there are way too many faces on that line. Nick had just said something in Crown Invocation as you introduce your consort. I think he just said something to the effect of, she found me in the Outland, dear boy. I was like, what?
So while we're looking at pictures of you fighting, Duke Johan asked why you decided to join the Brotherhood. What was your motivation?
Well, first it was funny because Conan, who was, an old Brotherhood, thought I was one because he hadn't been around for a few years and I was just around. And I camped with Bolslav at Battleborn, and this is me holding about 15 pounds of chains for Adamor's knighting and speaking to that. But I joined the Brotherhood because it was there was an Alberton midwinter fighter practice, and it was the first time I felt at home on the field. Was fighting with them, camping with them, just having this warrior base that this huge, just presence on the field for me was really important. And it's a lot of like-minded individuals. And Duke Lycurgus said something like, you don't create talent, you draft talent. And he was a big part of me becoming a member of the Brotherhood as well. I talked to him about that a lot. Before he passed, we were really close. And I know that Lycurgus Loke is a very polarizing figure for a lot of people. And I like to say I got the kinder, gentler Loke. He was retired. It was pretty close to the end of life. And he had a different perspective, I think, for me. And we were kindred spirits in how we dealt with a lot of things, I think, psychologically. So
Very cool.
Yeah, this is me getting an arts award. I think I was pretty surprised because while I do make a lot of arts, it's not a focus. So receiving recognition for that was pretty sweet.
I think I'm just going to go back to the Brotherhood for just a second. I think when you find people that make you feel like it's home or like a sense of community, it's just so important to embrace that. And I've talked to a lot of, the Dukes from the Brotherhood. And I love,
there are a few.
Yeah, I love how, what a sense of community you guys have all made with that household, or is it a household? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think in its truest sense, because there are non-combatants as well, it is a household. They serve and they throw the parties at Battleborn. So I quickly became one of the kind of official party hosts of Battleborn for like a handful of years, because it was just what you did. You make sure that people are involved and having fun. And I think that, they have this great kind of like tongue-in-cheek saying that fighting solves everything. That if you're not afraid to vocalize the things that are bothering you and like kind of fight it out on the field or verbally, I think that you're doing yourself a disservice. And so I'm very much like a truth teller person. And so if you don't want my opinion, definitely don't ask it, because that will just get us all into trouble. Don't ask me what I think about a piece of art unless you want critique. Like the whole night mother is brutal as an art critic. She was an ink paint supervisor, so her literal job was taking people's art, tearing it up, refining it, and redoing it in some cases. And so, as that was my growing up. So I think that as far as the Brotherhood went, it was a very kind of like-minded sensibility of just very kind of honest dealings with. And the fact that they were very adamant that you fought together and you were a fighting group, a war band, if you were in some other kingdoms, maybe referred to it as. And my group at home that I got involved with was a beautiful camp, and I loved being with them. But at the time, there was a lot of waffling of, we're not a household, because household means stuff and co-responsibility. And if you're a household, someone has to be in charge. And were we a fighting unit? Well, no, because they fought with the barony or their groups. And, that wasn't the case. It was a very clear-cut path. If you were Brotherhood, you fought together. And so I like that kind of direction. I like to know plans. I'm a planner. For someone that's infinitely late for everything, I would still like having plans. I don't mind wrecking them later, but I like to make them.
Very cool.
So I love that your kingdom does these.
Yeah, these are a beautiful tradition. I think Jerusha started the fighter cards, and then when she moved, Sig took them over and has just absolutely run with them, and really done some amazing work with them. I feel like Jerusha started them, but I could be wrong, but that tracks in my very distant memory. But they're cool.
How do you and Zipser balance consorting and fighting for each other?
We just call each other the worst consorts that ever did consort and move on with our day. Like, luckily, we our in-kingdom group that we can household with is Sine Nomine, and we all put a shade together, and there are non-combatants and that basically make sure that we're all not dumb idiots and take care of ourselves and each other. As a group, we kind of like I scan the list as they turn and yell who's fighting who, and there's a lot of like I'm saluting some around here somewhere, and we just kind of salute the air and move on with our day if we miss the fight. But as soon as I am eliminated from the tournament, I focus all my energy on him, which unfortunately means things like when we go on to your crown, I miss fighting Rifkin because he's still in this tournament that we're visiting for. So I miss Rose's tournament entirely because as soon as I'm out, I feel I owe it to him to be a better consort because he uses me as a focus point. I think if he were a more independent internal fighter, then that wouldn't be a problem. It is what it is.
It's a hard balance.
It is a hard balance. We manage it with friends. I mean, that's going to be my answer with 90% of the things, right? We do everything that we do because and with our friends. The relationships that you form. Here is Helga and Sir Adrian, and not then Sir because she doesn't have a chain on, so this is a few years back. But Adrian was the 50th female knight maid in the society. But I think her numbers shift. There was some reorg of the list, and so her numbers shift.
We added in the transsexual.
Gotcha. So that changed her number. In my heart, she'll always be number 50.
I'll always be 21, but I'm not 21 anymore.
And you want to see someone that got like 800 pounds of chains, man. Adrian and Helga on their knighting, and I'm sure Rifkin, you were the same.
No.
No? Oh my God.
No.
You saw Helga's though, right? Like stack like this thick. Like
I know. Adrian said she got like, I'm probably exaggerating, but 60 or 70 chains. Like I couldn't believe it. And Helga got like very close to the same. Yeah,
we ran with some members of Dragonstad, Adrian's vigil party and Nikita's Puerto Rican hooker bar, and we just totally had the best time. But man, like that girl, her vigil was long. Like poor Xerxes just fell asleep under his little Roman cloak. Someone put him on a cot. He had a tender, and then when it was his turn, like at 4 a.m, someone woke him up. It was nuts. But it was a really good time. Sorry, camp. That was real loud too.
So is there a story behind your device?
I was born in the year 1977, which is the year of the snake. And I was born on the 7th. So I've got 3 7s in my birthday. So I always represent my device with 7 stars and 2 snakes. So, and I draw this really like little 2-winged snakes kind of forming a heart, almost like little dragon guys. And it was way too close to Mariana's heraldry, so I did the wings and added black and white.
Nick says you love the Conan movies.
So there's a really good joke about that because this helm, and there it is. The day I finished making it, we put that last rivet in, shined her up, and someone's like, haha, Conan, 2 snakes coming together. I'm like, I don't get it. No clue.
Nice.
Yeah, I was a sheltered child. My mom was 42 when she had me. She didn't really watch TV, movies, or cartoons after she left the industry because no cartoon after she left was any good as far as she was concerned. And so there's a lot I had to learn. So there's me, smiling, Craven, and Franny, and I'm sure we were just doing pickups and talking about some fight we watched. This is me being real loud for Laura's elevation ceremony. So I am really gifted at yelling loudly.
So one of the things that I've noticed while we've been interviewing people from Atenveldt is you guys do a really good job of supporting people's elevations and step ups by dressing the way that they're going to dress. Is that sort of a tradition there?
if it's a tradition, it's just something we're kind of mindful of, at least in our household. And I'm sure a lot of groups do the same for when it's their guy and gal. I knew that they were going to be doing 14th century, so I did my thing 14th century. Below, I mean, because of Frambald and Dionysia's stepping down, certainly not the Scythian garment that wearing for coronation, but also Zitzer and Dionysia and Mariana, primarily was Mariana, made me that beautiful elevation dress, and it's 100% Dupioni silk that has never been like laundered. I've dry cleaned it once, and so I only do that at indoor events, and it scares me every time I put it on because I know the absolute work that went into making it, and so I was very happy to have worn it that day. This is Nick and I when he was placing this little coronet on my head. I had gone across the field only after the crown said that he was the victor, because I learned the hard way watching someone else before the crown says the thing get really excited and not so excited. So we don't do that anymore.
That's heartbreaking.
You know, sometimes things need to be refought, and that's okay. But heralds shouldn't say the fight's done until the fight's done. And also, I look down because there's some real awkward pictures of other people. So here is us, the event prior to that. I think maybe this is one. Oh gosh, what are we all wearing? This may have, yeah, this is the one. So Asa was down for the one he won. I think Bobby heralded us. It's pretty sweet. This is me pretending I know how to shoot archery. Woo! I don't think I have the patience for archery, but Dionysia did. Man, she took that like a duck to water. She's natural. I not so much, but she let me use her bow. So that was sweet. Here is what is turning out to, at this time, be the final march to the field of Atenveldt crowns.
For Estrella.
Yeah, this is Celeste again. It's beautiful, and she took some really nice photos that day. Here is me in one of the final round, not final, but the seeded of the Outlands Prize tournament, fighting a crazy two-sticker. He's very active. So much. And here is Nick's Laurel's celebration. You will see our very period wellies because woo, sloggy mud.
I didn't notice that until just now.
I notice it every time because it's the Laurel celebration and we're in Wellington. Yeah.
Sometimes function's just more important.
So here is our encampment, and I believe this is Nick's informal vigil. We did an open tent format for mine, and we decided, you know, for those of us that have to be in the party, this is actually a really good format because you can see the things going on around you, but you still have privacy. And so there's the table there being manned by Gilliana, and we're all hanging out. There we are again. Don't hit me on the head, I said. Oh, Helgi. Yep. I don't recognize, was that Ross? That might have been Ross. There's Miles. Miles always is one of those people that I have to fight every year because I just figure something out fighting him. He's very talented.
He's so fun.
He is so fun, and my favorite fighters to watch on the field are the ones that are excited when you best them. When they get as excited for your success and victory as they are for their own, it makes me really happy. So here's in Kaid, there are a much larger number of Asian women than here in Atenveldt. And so out at an event in Kaid, I was fighting pickups at one of their crown tournaments, and I was mistaken for, I think, a Nulla or, you know, someone. And there was also a dream once where Colette was yelling at Zipster for something. And so we all became the Asians because people mistake us for each other. It doesn't matter that Colette's like 5 feet tall with her coronet on. We all get picked out of the crowd for each other. So we made matching dresses to make that easier for people.
Well, I
And
like
Marissa
that
is like
you had
5'8".
fun with it.
Yeah, we have fun with it, you know, and none of us except for Colette and I are the same brand of Asian, and she is blood and I'm only half. So I believe this is Lala's kind of mustering for elevation. We're all kind of flocking together there.
A cool shot.
Nick and I took a winter weather photo for you guys. I think you guys had the snow days and had posted all those like beautiful snow guard photos. I'm like, babe, let's go take some snow guard photos for everybody in the snow right now because it's 75 degrees outside. Woo, so cold.
I love this whole series of photographs. I think that was just
Yeah, we Dionysia came over and took those for us. So Valora makes the most amazing banners, and I think all of them are hers except the far left couple there. And so we often get mistaken for a far fancier camp than we are because like people come into our camp like, where's royalty? We're like, what? There's Nick and I and another Crown Invocation. I'm sure he's saying something else real awkward. There is me at an Outlands tournament, and Conliak took that photo. She gets really happy, laughy photos. There's me sticking my tongue out for my sister Olivia.
and we're done.
We're back to Ivan.
Woohoo!
You'll probably never see this because he doesn't Facebook, so someone will have to send him a link. But yeah, we are very fortunate to be a very fun-loving group, and I like to yell that we're all peers here because while we're a household, at least for Sine Nomine, that's entirely, with the exception of Ava, a peer group, we do the most ridiculous things like host the Wobbly H and do wizard staff and kind of make a ruckus and have fun, because I think that's honestly the most important part of our game, that I think as we get older we forget what we were like when we were young, and that kind of goes by the wayside, that feeling of being 25 and finding this for the first time. So we try not to let that happen. I think you covered this with Zipster and Gabe when you guys interviewed them, but they were all knighted at 21, that whole lot of them, and so we try and make sure that we keep that same fun level and youthful vigor, even though a lot of us are hitting our 40s and beyond. We don't want to lose that. Actually, there's 2 cups that I just got out of the kiln, aside from this one I've been drinking tonight, that I wanted to show you guys. I'm gonna do the awkward lean so you didn't get like the super close up. And let's see, this one, I took some inspiration.
Oh, cool.
And then someone had sent me this really cool pot that her name came off of. And so I copied that pretty much verbatim there. And so I was going to bring this to Seattle the next time I go, or first time I go actually, but it's potential that you won't be there. So I wanted to bring that out tonight. And eventually I'm going to remake Nick's Laurel Bowl, which is ironically, I think, the same shape bowl of your original name cup. And then I made this one, which if we spin it around.
Aw. Thank you.
And it's all backwards because mirrored images are awesome. But I wanted to make something to bring to you guys because you have spent a lot of time giving to the society this last year and a half. And who knew it was going to be so long when you signed up to do it. But it's, I think, been really important that you guys have gotten so many people to tell their stories and share their experiences. And, you know, I think that if anything, it's given a lot of people this kind of common ground to see that, you know, even though some kingdoms and traditions are so disparate and different, and at the core of it, we all came for this thing that we enjoy doing, and having fun is at the key of it all. And, you know, even though some people may drift back, away from that, hopefully, these videos made them think about what it was like when they started. What was that first practice that you went to? What was the awe that triggered that join to commit the better part of a lot of people's adult lives, if not their entire life, for the second and now third gen people. I think that what you've done and the gift that you've shared with the community has been invaluable.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I hope, like, one of the things that comes out of this is, I think it was Duke Zereth from the Outlands talked about crossing the field or whatever, and making friends with people from other kingdoms, and that they're not this faceless enemy. And I'm hoping that one of the things that comes out of this is that people realize how much more we have in common, and that there isn't this like sports team mentality, or there doesn't have to be.
Well, and I think a lot of it too is because we have these wars, and it happened between the Outlands and Atenveldt for a long time. There was this sense of rivalry that had gone past that it had become almost like a negative miasma that had kind of lain across of the two kingdoms. And this is prior to Battleborn, I think, where I was literally at my second Battleborn event, and I had walked up to go check in on my friend's daughter, Sarah's daughter, actually, who is an avid volunteer and student, and she was in charge of the water bearing. And I walked up to like 3 of her friends saying, Atenveldt's this, and they're all assholes and they're selfish because da 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 da. And I'm sure it was just things that they'd overheard in camp. They were teenagers. Like, how selfish and jerkish could we have been to like kids, that they'd come up with this opinion of us. And so I'm like, hey, Ash, I brought a bunch of food and I haven't really had to touch it because Bolsaw's been cooking every night. Can I make you and your friends some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and bring over some like Gatorades and soda and stuff? She's like, that'd be awesome. And so I'm like, could you come with me and help me carry the stuff back? She's like, sure. And so I'm like, what's going on? She's like, oh, because Australia and everybody just gets so amped up, and so now that we have our own event, they just their parents kind of, and so it was just like this thing. I'm like, well, let's gather up the food, and we made sandwiches and we hung out and talked for probably 30-40 minutes, and at the end of it they're like, well, thanks so much. I'm like, no problem. They're like, where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from Atenveldt. And you could just like watch their faces like, oh no, you were talking all that trash and now she's nice. What the hell's happening to us right now? But I think that's like totally the thing is, it's like something that gets caught on a loop, and you just hear your friends say it, you hear your parents say it, and if you don't bother to find out for yourself, well, then it's rumor becomes reality. And I think that was something that when Bela made the very hard decision to pull Outlands out of Australia at that point, I think it was needed. And we could see it at that event. And then when Alric made the decision to put it back, it was time, because people were ready to kind of dip their toes back in the water. Atenveldt and Morgan is one of those people. We had worked really hard on the hospitality and being kind to our neighbors, and it took kind of that rivalry out. Even though we still have it, it became less negative and more like we actually want to fight these people on the weekends. So I think that all the kingdoms kind of go through that. I'm sure Kaid in the West do the same thing. West and Ontario, it's like when you spend so much time fighting your neighbor, you kind of take it a little too much seriously. I don't know. I think we just need to remember that as the youth and the new people come around, it's like your weights and the things that you hold negative may not be there. So don't spread that. I think it's kind of something that I've worked really hard.
And we can't have these fun wars and these interkingdom events without the other kingdom. So
right. It's crazy, right?
Yeah, so they're enabling our fun. So let's get to know who they are and just have more fun off the field.
Yeah, just try being nice. I mean, I remember when my second event was a crown tournament, and someone like yoinked me aside and told me that watch out for Livia because she might take advantage of your friendship. And I was like, you mean the girl that just spent the last 3 nights sewing an entirely new garment for me? I'm like, this is mine. Like, this is my own new outfit at my second event. She made this for me. I'm like, no, I am a strong, opinionated person all on my own. I don't need your opinions flooding my brain pan. I'm like, this isn't how we fly. I'm like, no, I decide who's going to be my friend. You don't get to tell me. And I think that it was a peer, that felt like some sort of like gatekeeper responsibility for new people. And it was really bizarre because Livia is a gracious, amazing, thoughtful, gift giving, talented human. And it made me so mad. And I'd known her for like a month and I could see that. So I get real mad when people talk out of turn about stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, she's an incredibly talented artist. Too.
Generous person.
It's amazing. Well, I wanted to thank you for supporting our interviews so much and for helping us find people to interview. You are one of the forces behind hooking us up with people to interview, and we really appreciate all of the work that you've put into that because it's made what we've been doing possible. So thank you.
You're welcome. I have this kind of strange ability to network people, and I'm not afraid to ask for favors or for help. I mean, if all my art projects that Art helped me on are a good example, and Casca with all my armor behind me, Phelan, who loaned me literally everything I wore for the first bits of fighting, and Livia, who clothed me, it's like if we don't ask for the help or are willing to network people in, then it's something that I'm pretty passionate about. I love kind of being that problem solver, and not that I had to solve your problem, but it's like, ooh, I know who'd be interesting. Do you think you can? So I think that's all fun. It makes me happy to see people shine.
Me too.
Yeah, for sure. It's fantastic. Well, Rivkin, do you have any other questions?
Well, I was supposed to ask her about her first mixed drinks war.
So that sounds like it might have come from Melissa, or I don't know, literally anybody that was there. We like to joke that we kind of ruined that event a little bit, but we brought like glow in the dark frisbees and crazy fun time, like just had the best time of kind of getting music and silliness out, and we got yelled at, and of course in the middle of the night, because most of Sun Dragon is in our retirement community, and so we should be more respectful of quiet time, but we're not very respectful of quiet time, so probably be pretty aware of that if you plan on camping next to me in any time in the future. But yeah, we totally did like Tron Frisbee, and some very lovely woman came out of our camp and was yelling, and she didn't realize she was in Deaton's camp, and Deaton is pretty much a pillar of the society here and now lives in your neck of the woods, and so was instantly very apologetic that she had yelled in Deaton and Casca's camp because nobody yells at Deaton and Casca. And then also, another mixed drinks war, it's the same thing. We all camped in what was pretty much the only open field, and someone very politely asked if they could put their itty bitty little tiny wedge in camp with us, and they did, and then basically just lambasted us about the event for playing ludicrous and just being silly and having fun. Here's the problem, is that mixed drinks was always like 2 weeks after Estrella, where we had all just volunteered and served and done everything for the year before, and mixed drinks was the next event that we all went to, and it was a tradition long before I joined the SCA. That was the relax war. That was the war that everybody went to and just calm down after some very hectic service and fighting. And if you took who even takes armor to mixed weapons war, that was very hard for Zipster when he started joining us, because he's like, it's mixed weapons war. It's like clearly the thing that I love the most, which is all the melee weapons and fighting with the glaive, and I get to hit people a lot, right, guys? And we're like, no, buddy, we don't fight at mixed weapons war. It's a mixed drinks war. So but yes, lots of incoming and yelling, and we basically, I think the next event that the following year, we made it twice as bad. I think we brought more frisbees and more glowy sticks. So that's how we react. We're adults. We're all peers here. We're adults.
So I actually did have another question. You've been in this really unique position where you've been Crown Princess of Atenveldt for a year and 8 months.
Something like
Something
that.
like that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. It's
Have
been,
you
it's been a minute.
have you used this time? Like, do you have plans?
Well, like all things, the best laid plans. Bids are due on Sunday for Coronation site. You think we'd have one by now, but we don't. The park that we were hoping for is unavailable.
Oh.
Somehow someone beat us to it. So now we're just waiting to see what bids we have and pick the best one. Garb has been done for a long time. Ava, who moved out there, finished my step up garb long before she left. And I mean, I'm not going to really have to worry too much about getting dressed because Sir Valor has been like a one woman insane
A machine.
party fool. I'm wearing a Valor right now. I don't know if you can see. We did some tone on tone stamping with this one, and I've got my little hat. But yeah, she's a crazy person with the crafting, and is I think it's been a multiple person project of just keeping Valora sane during a pandemic, because she's incredibly active and being home has been very hard for her. So yeah, we're just trying to get back to it. And it has been a weird position to be virtual and online and airs this long. I mean, if I known it was going to be this long, it's kind of almost like being a baron and baroness at this point, you know, that multiple year stint that I never thought I would feel comfortable doing, because that's 2 to 3 years of your life. And turns out this can be 2 to 3 years of your life too. But here we are. And I think it, honestly, not to toot my own horn, but I don't know that it could have been a better, more patient couple waiting in the wings, or making these decisions with Morgan and Liz, because there's nothing that is happening that is about us, right? Like, you learn, I think that's something you learn, like the second that final blow is struck, that nothing anymore is about you. You won the tournament, but everything moving forward is for your populace, for the better of the SCA, for the group as a whole. So having that in my head already, watching friends go through being crowns, Casca, Melissa, and you know, Merrick and Golda and Franbald and Dionysa, when it ceases to become about you is when I think you do probably the best for your group as a whole. And so this wasn't about us. This is the, you know, waiting in the wings. We would have been doing that anyway. We wouldn't have been playing. So we can be as patient as we need to be.
I have to say too that I have seen some really contentious transitions in our kingdom between Crown Prince and the Crown, and to work together with the Crown for this long just speaks a lot to both sets, both couples, that you guys have been able to just stick with it and communicate and remain positive with each other is
I
awesome.
couldn't agree more. And, you know, having the opportunity to have known Morgan and Elizabeth as long as we have, and know that, you know, at the heart of it, we all just want what's best, I think is really important. And they're very, very kind-hearted people. And so we don't have to worry between the four of us that something is being done for our own personal gain. Everything, I think, is being done with the right mindset right now. But they're done. I mean, they're as ready to be done with this as the next couple, I'm sure. So, I mean, who wouldn't be at this point? But, you know, we still have a crown tournament to host and champions to name and coronations to have, you know, not only our own, but for our eventual successors. We lost a lot of people that were going to be part of our court group to moves during the pandemic. Mariana moved, Zachariah moved, Ava moved, our warlord, her husband, Casimir moved. And so we now get to reseed a lot of our court and debate if we're going to hold another warlord tournament or if we want to name one. we're not sure. We have certainly plenty of very successful warlords in our kingdom, so we're gonna make that choice as well.
Well, it'll all happen. It's all gonna
It'll
happen
all come out in the wash, as they say,
eventually.
eventually.
Well, thank you for spending some time with us. And I love that cup that you made. And I love that you used the signature from the bottom of the pot. That's how I sign my pottery.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh
So,
my goodness. Yeah, I was like, well, she'd sent me an image of her signature. Why should I come up with a new font and spell it anglicized to what I think it should look like? Let's do the thing. So it was the very least that I could do for you two as a symbol of my thanks, and gosh, I felt like I was so prepared and had done all this prep work, and then the beginning of this video, big ugh. But I'm glad this worked out.
yep, it's fine. It's fine.
I'm like, can we cut that in the editing? I don't know.
No, there's no editing. It's all live.
If there was editing,
When you
I
post
wouldn't be able
it
to
to
do this.
YouTube.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching and hanging out with us. And I guess we'll just see you all next week. We have Rotrude next week.
Yep.
You want to talk about her a little bit?
Yeah, she is an amazing artist and fighter up in Ontier. She,
Second gen.
yeah, second gen, and she, like me, had a baby and came back from fighting, and that's a hard road, and we'll probably talk about that a little bit. And she's actually, her name's Rotrude the Half Blind, and she actually is legally blind in one eye, and she fights, which I think is very, very cool, because wow.
I think there are more half-blind people than we think out there, because I mean, we have Nikita in our
And
camp, as
Edward.
well as Duke Edward, who both fight half with one eye. And I think there's a couple of guys in the West that either have incredibly impaired vision or one eye. Ollie from Palantir, his vision is impaired to legally blind, and he just sees like little tiny microwave, like watching something spin in a microwave holes in his vision. So
No fakes with him.
I'm looking forward to hearing how she has had to, or even if she thinks about the compensation at this point in her life.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So come join us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks everybody.
Thank
Good
you.
night.